In other words, your current negotiations don't mean as much as you think. I mean, I watch you out there with the pickets, but I don't think you're picketing for the right thing.
President Biden became the first president ever to actually walk the picket line. Other Democrats have talked about unions, but not gone that far. Trump claimed that he was with the workers, except he wasn't. He actually went to an anti-union shop.
Donald Trump is a scab.
This is Matt Littman for MeidasTouch, being joined today by Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson from Michigan. Hi, Jocelyn.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Is it okay if I say Jocelyn and not Secretary?
Of course.
I feel like Michigan is the opposite of Florida in almost every way. Like you have, not just weather-wise, but you have the best elected officials in the country, and it's so weird. You would say so too. I mean, Gretchen, Dana Nessel, Haley Stevens, like all these amazing people. And it's so weird because it's still a 50-50 state. And in the Republican Party, isn't the Republican Party in Michigan like in total disarray? Am I wrong?
It continues to be, yeah. And that's something that's notable as we go into this cycle. You know, to what extent will they be organized? Obviously, the National Party will have something to say about that. And I just believe citizens in Michigan on all backgrounds and spectrum really deserve to be respected and told the truth. And so that's what I hope candidates and parties will prioritize this year. And if not, I think candidates should hold accountable those who seek to gain power through lies and division. But certainly there's the level of organization that you have in a state like Michigan, where Democrats have won consistently for the last several years, really indicates our preparedness for this moment. Where in many ways the votes Michiganders cast will decide the outcome of the presidential election. And in addition to that, I think, you know, we're going to hear a lot about 2016 over the next several months and how Trump won Michigan in 2016 by 10,000 votes. And that's true. But after 2016, citizens amended our Constitution to expand our voting rights significantly, and our turnout among all voters has markedly increased since. And that really also has coincided with Democrats ultimately getting to be a trifecta in Michigan in 2022, where now Democrats, after not having any control in 2012, now have control not just of the governors and the executive branch, but of the state Senate and the state legislature. So, you know, it's a new day for democracy in Michigan. It has become a new day since the last time Donald Trump won this state. And I think that is an important thing to keep in mind as we try to predict how things are going to go over the next 8 months.
Right. And you mentioned the lies, and it makes me think of when Trump was there, Biden should be supported by unions. He's done an incredible job for unions in this country. Trump went, and I believe he had people pretending to be in unions holding up signs at one of his rallies, right? I mean, I don't understand how Michigan could even be 50-50.
I think, you know, it takes a lot to prove to folks that they've been fooled and lied to, and it's a lot harder to convince someone they've been fooled than to fool them. And so our goal is really, whether it's fighting misinformation through artificial intelligence or other things, just stop citizens from being fooled this year and help them see what's at stake, the real contrast, and who cares about them so that they can elect leaders who care about them and really cut through the noise of not just Trump, but a lot of foreign adversaries who want to create this era of chaos and confusion and fear among citizens that will cause them either to stay home or vote for an autocrat or someone who would appear to be a strongman. And we know all the history tells us that's how democracies die and autocracies rise.
So folks know it's in Michigan leading the way in a lot of these efforts to ensure that democracy continues to exist, that every vote is heard and counted at the ballot. But you're not just helping Michigan. You're part of a group of secretaries of state that are really working on this around the country. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, one of the things we saw in 2020 was that particularly in battleground states, we were all battling a common adversary, a really nationally coordinated effort to undermine the will of the people, both before, during, and after Election Day. And we learned to semi-coordinate with each other in 20. You know, Katie Hobbs and I, who was Secretary of Arizona at the time, she and I are friends, so we would talk regularly. But there was really no way for us to consistently as a team, the six of us in those six battleground states, which Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Arizona, Nevada, and Georgia, to constantly both compare notes and also say, okay, how are we going to respond to this nationally coordinated effort with a coordinated response? And so that's now we have that. We actually spent 2022 working to build that team in these 6 states. You've got strong voices now in Arizona, in Nevada, in Georgia, in Wisconsin, in Pennsylvania, and in Michigan. And we're all talking, we're all working together, and we're all very clear-eyed about what we're up against. Because the battle over the future of our democracy isn't going to be in the post-election process only. It starts now. And it starts with how various court battles are playing out. And you'll see all of us getting hit with the same types of sham lawsuits that are lawsuits, or PR campaigns masquerading as lawsuits. So as we work together, as we talk to each other, we can develop common strategies and be much more powerful, united as a team, even across party lines, than we would be if we were just fighting these battles in our respective states by ourselves.
I'm going to keep you on for another minute, but I assume we're in your house. Who's that action figure behind you? There's an action figure. Yeah.
Superman, my son, made this for me. And then you also have a picture. I'm actually headed to Selma, Alabama this afternoon to march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. This I do every year. This was when myself and 17 other secretaries, half Republican, half Democrat, crossed the bridge together the first time in history in 2019.
Then you live in Alabama?
I started my career in Alabama in the late 90s, investigating white supremacist groups with the Southern Poverty Law Center. So it is home, although I grew up in Pittsburgh. Going back every year to Selma really is my way of reconnecting with my source and who I am and what I want to be. So my whole team is going down this year, staff, our senior staff, to basically say, like, the battle over democracy was fought here in Selma, and it's being fought now in Michigan, and let's see that connection and feel that connection to those before us.
So there was this Biden won, obviously, by a lot, primary, but there was this undeclared, undecided votes. That was what, 12% or so?
Yeah, ma'am.
Is that a little bit higher than normal? Because I think there is some undecided vote every time. Is that a little higher than normal? And then the next question I'm going to ask Jocelyn is, how do we make sure people are on board with the president's campaign in November?
I'm a data person. And so if you look at the numbers, it's not rare for there to be uncommitted voters, even in a uncontested primary. In 2012, when President Obama was running for re-election, there was about 10% of the vote in the Democratic primary that year who voted uncommitted without any sort of organized campaign to get uncommitted votes. So I think we have to recognize things are what they are. That said, the concentration of uncommitted votes in this primary will lead to, in 2 congressional districts, a delegate to be able to go to the convention this summer as an uncommitted delegate. So that's notable. And then obviously the other thing that's notable is that anytime there is, as Democrats and as leaders, we got to listen to everyone. We got to make sure that, especially in such a divisive moment where communities are grieving and going through great trauma, and we can kind of debate all the nuances and the facts. The bottom line is people are hurting, and everyone deserves to feel that they're being heard by their president and their leaders. And so and democracy has always been a tool for that, for voices, every voice to be heard. So I do believe, and I think the president after the primary and after Tuesday has continued to say, in many ways, his actions are aligning with the calls of those who voted uncommitted to try to seek a peaceful outcome to this really horrific conflict that's been unfolding in Israel and in Gaza for several months now. And we see every day his work to try to reach a peaceful solution that will enable the protecting of innocent lives and the return of all hostages. How does
it work with the campaign? How do you make sure that Michigan stays blue in 2024?
Well, first, I'm the chief democracy officer for the state. So my job is simply to make sure, no matter who someone wants to vote for, that they have the tools they need to participate in the election, and to make sure that truth rules the day on all fronts. And we have a lot of candidates, particularly on the Republican side, one in particular who loves to run on lies. And so a lot of what my work will be doing will be trying to equip citizens to cut through the lies and see the truth and the true contrast in what's at stake for Americans and for Michiganders in this moment. I truly believe, and I think there's plenty of data to underscore that the votes we cast in this election, no matter what party we may affiliate with, will define the future of our country and our democracy. And I think we need to recognize that this is a moment where we as a country can reject the politics of meanness, of cruelty, of division, and of lies, and instead hold accountable those who would seek power that way and support leaders of all backgrounds who recognize the importance of statesmanship, civility, and getting things done. And that's certainly what has won in Michigan. When you look at Gretchen Whitmer, myself, we are not necessarily partisan people. We are just people who like to solve problems and get things done. And that's what I hope voters across the country and in Michigan will call on all leaders to do this year.
Before we go, I do want to just, if you could just tell us for 1 second, as long as you want, actually. In 2020, you guys, Secretaries of State, not just you, received a lot of death threats. This is not something that you bargained for as a Secretary of State necessarily, but you received very specific, obviously, Gretchen, they wanted to kidnap the governor of Michigan, death threats. How do you, people very specifically talked about shooting you.
Mm-hmm. And they still do. Still talk about that.
Well, we shouldn't talk about that. How do they connect? Like, are they emailing your staff? Like, how does that even?
Yeah. I get emails, phone calls, but it's also, people show up outside my home. I get letters in the mail. I shouldn't reveal all the tactics in case people decide to replicate them, but it ebbs and flows based on the moment. But it's become the unfortunate norm, this constant state of anxiety. And for my son, who made this sort of superhero action figure for me, it's become a way to show him what standing up for democracy sometimes, unfortunately, means from people who have been fed lies and want to seek some sort of retribution, or others who have more nefarious goals in mind. It's also gender-based. I mean, we see the vast majority of election administrators are women, and they also are receiving the vast majority of threats. Even Brad Raffensperger, it was his wife and his daughter-in-law who were really at the subject of threats in 2020. So the gender-based misogynist sort of strategy behind all of that, too, is very real and felt by all of us. But we respond just by locking arms and marching forward anyway, just like those folks at the foot of the Edmund Pettus Bridge did in 1965. We walk into the sea of folks trying to deter us from doing our jobs, and we keep going until we win. And winning means making sure every voice is heard and every vote is counted, and that all of the efforts to try to dismantle democracy fail, and that ultimately who we are as Americans continues to be defined as a place where every voice is valued and heard.
Well, very well said, Jocelyn. There's a reason we refer to you as the best elected official in America.
Thank you. Thanks.
On your trip, I'm sure it'll be.
Thank you.
Trip.
Yes, we'll see pictures. We'll tell you about it, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks for all that you do.
Thank you.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.